Jin-Ho wiped sweat from his face as he walked through the thick jungle. The air was hot and wet. Strange sounds came from all around him. He checked his small computer again. The rest of his team was nowhere on the map. Great, he said to himself, lost on an alien planet. Jin-Ho was a scientist who studied animals on new planets. He worked at a research base called Horizon 7, which orbited the planet Narim. Today was supposed to be a simple trip to collect plant samples. Then the storm hit. The wind came fast and hard. Rain poured down. Jin-Ho lost sight of the others. Now he was alone, with only his backpack and tools. He pushed through large leaves and stepped over fallen trees. His boots sank into the soft ground. The jungle was full of life. Small flying creatures with 4 wings zipped past his head. Tiny blue animals that looked like lizards scurried away when he got close. Jin-Ho checked his oxygen meter. The air here was safe to breathe, but strange smells filled his nose. Sweet fruits mixed with the smell of wet soil and something else, something sharp and animal-like. He froze when he heard a low growl. The sound came from ahead, beyond a fallen tree covered in purple moss. Jin-Ho should have turned back. He should have called for help. Instead, he moved closer. Carefully, he looked over the fallen tree. There it was, a Bako. The creature was huge. It had 6 strong legs and a body covered in scales that shimmered blue and green in the light. Its head held 2 sets of eyes, large yellow ones on top and smaller red ones below. Sharp teeth poked out from its mouth. The science team had only seen Bako from far away before. They knew these animals were the top hunters on Narim. Nothing hunted them. Everything feared them. This one was trapped. A large branch had fallen across its back legs. The creature snarled and clawed at the ground, trying to pull free. Jin-Ho watched as the Bako fought against the branch. It was strong, but not strong enough. Its scales were scraped off in places, showing dark blood underneath. Every part of Jin-Ho's training told him to leave. Bako were dangerous, but something else made him stay. The creature wasn't just angry, it was scared. Jin-Ho sat down behind the fallen tree, out of sight from the Bako. He pulled out his water bottle and took a drink. Then he opened his food pack. The smell made the creature growl louder. "You're hungry too, aren't you?" Jin-Ho said softly. He took out a small piece of dried meat from his emergency rations. Carefully, he tossed it over the tree, where it landed near the Bako. The growling stopped. Jin-Ho heard sniffing, then quick eating sounds. "That's it," he whispered. "I'm not here to hurt you." Jin-Ho knew he should call his team. But first, he wanted to try something. Something no one had done before. He opened his notebook and wrote, "Day 1 with the apex predator. It hasn't eaten me yet. I think we might have a chance to understand each other." 3 days passed. Jin-Ho made a small camp not far from the trapped Bako. He used branches and leaves to build a shelter. Every few hours, he would check on the creature. The Bako stopped growling at him after the first day. Now it watched him with its 4 eyes. The yellow top eyes seemed to track his movements. The red bottom eyes stayed fixed on his hands. "You're smart," Jin-Ho said as he tossed another piece of meat toward the creature. "You know where the food comes from." Jin-Ho named the Bako Duri, which meant 2 in his language, because of its 2 sets of eyes. Each time he came back, he moved a little closer. Duri would tense up, but no longer showed its teeth. On the 4th morning, Jin-Ho's radio crackled. "Jin-Ho, can you hear me? This is Tae-Young." Jin-Ho grabbed his radio. "I'm here. I'm okay. We've been looking everywhere for you." Tae-Young's voice was both angry and relieved. "Send your location now." Jin-Ho looked over at Duri. The creature was watching him. "I will, but listen. I found something amazing. A Bako trapped under a fallen branch. I've been feeding it." The radio was silent for a long moment. "You've been Woesheshi," Tae-Young finally shouted. "Those things are killers. We're coming to get you right now." When Jin-Ho sent his location, he knew he had only a few hours before the rescue team arrived. He had to work fast. He gathered all his remaining food and water. Slowly, he approached Dury closer than ever before. The creature made a low rumble in its throat, but didn't snap at him. "I need to see how badly you're hurt," Jin-Ho said softly. "I want to help." He moved to the side of the creature, where he could see the trapped back legs. The branch was heavy, but it hadn't broken the legs. If they could lift it, Dury might be able to walk. Jin-Ho noticed something else. The ground under Dury was shaped into a shallow pit, and in the pit were 5 large, oval objects. Eggs. "You're not just trapped," Jin-Ho whispered. "You're protecting your babies." Now everything made sense. Why Dury hadn't used all its strength to escape. Why it stayed in one spot despite being hurt and hungry. It was apparent. When the rescue team arrived, they came with guns ready. Tae-young led them, her face tight with worry. "Step away from that thing, Jin-Ho," she called. Jin-Ho stood his ground. "No, look at this first." He showed them his notebook. Pages of drawings and notes about Dury's behavior. How it responded to different sounds. How it communicated with its eyes and body. "This isn't just a monster," Jin-Ho explained. "This is a mother protecting her eggs. And she understands I'm trying to help." Tae-young looked from Jin-Ho to the Baiko. Dury was watching them all, but its focus stayed on Jin-Ho. "You have 24 hours, Tae-young finally said, "to prove this creature won't kill you the moment it's free." Jin-Ho smiled. "That's all I need." Jin-Ho worked all night. He and 2 team members set up lights around Dury. They built a simple lifting machine using parts from their packs. By morning, they were ready to try freeing the Baiko. "This is crazy," said my son, the team doctor. "That thing will attack us the second it's free." "No, she won't," Jin-Ho said. "Dury understands we're helping." Tae-young checked her stun gun. "We'll see." Jin-Ho approached Dury slowly. He carried a large piece of meat from their supplies. "Hey Dury," he said softly, "we're going to get that branch off you today." The creature watched him. Its big yellow eyes blinked. Jin-Ho placed the meat near Dury's front legs. As the Baiko ate, Jin-Ho gently touched its side for the first time. The scales felt smooth and warm. Dury tensed, but kept eating. "See," Jin-Ho said to the others. "Trust." They moved their lifting machine into place. Jin-Ho stayed by Dury's head, talking quietly while the others worked. When they were ready, he gave the signal. "Lift now." The machine groaned. The branch moved slowly. Dury made a strange chirping sound as pressure eased off her back legs. Finally, the branch was high enough. Jin-Ho nodded to Dury. "You're free now." For a long moment, no one moved. Dury stayed still, her eyes fixed on Jin-Ho. Then, slowly, she pulled her back legs out from under the branch. She stood up to her full height. Tae-young raised her stun gun. My son stepped back, but Jin-Ho didn't move. Dury was huge, taller than Jin-Ho when standing on all 6 legs. She could easily kill them all. Instead, she bent down and nudged at the ground where her eggs lay. "She's checking her babies," Jin-Ho explained. After making sure the eggs were safe, Dury turned to Jin-Ho. She made a low rumble in her throat and lowered her head. Not in anger, but almost like a bow. "I think she's thanking us," Jin-Ho said, amazed. The moment broke when a loud roar came from the jungle. Everyone froze. Dury's head snapped up, her scales bristling. "Another Baiko," Tae-young whispered. "We need to leave now." But Jin-Ho pointed at Dury. The creature had moved to stand over her nest. She was weak from her injury and days without proper food. She couldn't fight off another Baiko. "We can't leave her," Jin-Ho said. "She's too weak to protect her eggs." "That's nature," my son said. "We shouldn't interfere." Jin-Ho shook his head. We already did interfere. We helped her. We can't stop now. The roar came again, closer this time. Through the trees, they saw movement. Another Bako was coming, bigger than Dury. What can we possibly do against that? Tae-young asked. Jin-ho smiled. Nothing violent. But I have an idea. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small box. Remember how I said Dury responds to certain sounds? Jin-ho said. Let's see if her cousin does too. Jin-ho quickly opened the small box. Inside was a sound recorder he had used to capture Dury's different calls. Cover your ears, he warned. He pressed a button. A loud, deep rumbling sound played. The same sound Dury made when she was angry. Jin-ho turned the volume all the way up. The new Bako stopped moving. Its head tilted, listening. Jin-ho played a different sound next, a high, sharp call that Dury had made once when a flying creature came too close to her eggs. What are you doing? Tae-young whispered. Speaking their language, Jin-ho said. He moved forward slowly, still playing different sounds. The new Bako, a male with darker scales, watched him carefully. Jin-ho stopped halfway between Dury and the male. Then he did something that made everyone gasp. He turned his back on the male Bako. Jin-ho, my son called out. That's too dangerous. But Jin-ho had studied Dury for days. He knew that Bako only attacked from the front. Turning his back was a sign of trust, or a trick to get the predator to come closer. The male Bako moved forward. It sniffed the air around Jin-ho. The human stood perfectly still. Then Dury made a new sound, a series of short clicks. The male stopped. Jin-ho's recorder caught the sounds. He played them back, louder. Slowly, the male Bako backed up. It looked from Jin-ho to Dury, then back to Jin-ho. After a long moment, it turned and walked away into the jungle. Jin-ho let out a breath. It worked. What just happened? Tae-young asked, lowering her stun gun. I think I just claimed this territory, Jin-ho said, in Bako language. My son looked amazed. You pretended to be part of Dury's family group. Not pretended, Jin-ho said. He walked back to Dury, who was still standing protectively over her eggs. I think I am part of her group now. Over the next week, the research team built a small station near Dury's nest. They studied her, fed her, and helped keep her eggs warm when she went to hunt. Jin-ho continued learning the Bako's sounds and movements. 1 month later, the eggs hatched. 5 small Bako babies crawled out, each with tiny scales that sparkled in the sunlight. They were afraid of the humans at first, but they soon learned that Jin-ho and his team meant no harm. Word spread about Jin-ho's work. Other scientists came to see the human who had tamed a Bako without violence. Jin-ho always corrected them. I didn't tame her, he would say. We learned to understand each other. 6 months later, Jin-ho sat on a log, watching Dury teach her young how to hunt. The babies were growing quickly. One of them, the smallest female with bright blue scales, came over to Jin-ho and made a friendly chirping sound. Jin-ho smiled and chirped back. The sound wasn't perfect, but it was close enough. This is how it should be, Jin-ho said to Tae-young, who was taking notes nearby. Not humans controlling animals, but living together with understanding. Tae-young nodded, and all without a single act of violence. Jin-ho watched as Dury called her babies back to her. That's the human way at its best, he said. Not with force, but with patience and respect.